Tom, thank you so much for the time. How you doing today?
I'm all right, man. Thank you. How are you?
I'm doing great, and it is great connecting with you in the midst of your first ever US tour with the band. Started at the Gramercy in New York, where I'm currently speaking with you today. You're in Chicago, a place that I lived for about 7 years, performing at a really cool venue, Shuba's tonight. How have things been for you and your bandmates so far, Tom?
I mean, the gigs have been great. We've really enjoyed it. I mean, for me personally, I got a little bit of a cold, lost my voice nearly at Toronto, but the beautiful doctors at Kitchener looked after me and got me all the steroids and antibiotics and everything, and I'm on the mend now, mate. But it meant, unfortunately, we had to pull a few pressings. But I'm glad I'm here to chat with you. I'm pretty much there. I'm about 80%. We should be fine.
A cold is about the worst thing that you can possibly get when you're on tour as the lead singer, huh?
Yeah, exactly that. It was a stressful week. We had a few issues with vehicles hiring in JFK, and a couple other things went wrong. And as the tour manager as well, that kind of became a bit stressful. So I guess it's a lot of traveling. You know the score, right? A lot of traveling, feeling a bit run down. And but I'm strictly off the booze for a little while, and until I'm back, which is, if you know me at all, an odd experience.
Yeah, you are not shy about the fact that you like to knock a couple back after shows. So that's just one
Yeah,
more thing that you're having to adjust for, I guess. It feels like anytime you go through a new experience, there's always going to be those things that you're having to troubleshoot. It's like
yeah.
things that the unexpected or the expected, where you're like you kind of brace yourself, and when it happens, hopefully you're prepared to deal with all the different possibilities.
Yeah, I think it's just part of being on tour, and it's nothing we haven't dealt with before, but it's yeah, obviously you come to your beautiful country and everything is times 10, including the distances between cities, and so there's a lot of traveling and there's a lot of making sure that everybody's in the right place at the right time, and it's just being on tour is one of those things. But you're right. Of all of the things that I could have broken a leg, that would have been all right, but a cold that goes straight to the throat, it's. But I'm all right, mate. I think tonight will be the last one where I'm a little bit kind of, I guess, conscious of the decisions I'm making vocally, and then I should be back again, so it should be fine.
Well, I really enjoy the new album. It is out now, has been out for a couple months. It's why you're on tour here in the US for the first time ever. And I love something that you guys are all bonded by when it comes to making an album, and that is the art of a full album. That's something that seems to be lost on a lot of people in modern times, Tom, where it's about streaming whatever off of Spotify, Apple Music, whatever else. So I love to hear that you guys think about not just individual songs, but the album from beginning to end and try and make sure that everything has context to it.
Yeah, when the band's only about 4 years old, and I remember when we started the band, it was very much a conscious choice to continue to do that, because we were tempted by the idea of, dropping a single every couple of weeks, or once a month, doing this, that, and the other, and trying to feed the beast of DSPs and Spotify and whatnot, and we just thought, actually, you know what? What we grew up with and the thing that we loved was that concept of a full album, and hopefully even the artistic choices of what songs go where on the album, and making sure that that's a little bit of a ride for people who are listening as well, becomes part of the process, I think, and something that we love doing. And yeah, it was a definite choice. This album feels more like a proper album to us, if you like, than the first record, because it does feel as though it has a little bit of an ebb and flow to it that works nicely. Yeah, so thank you. Yeah, long may it last, mate. We'll stick with it as a format, I think.
So, as far as the new album is concerned, considering that you're putting that much thought into where each song goes, why was Ride Home the right place to start for you guys?
Probably musically more than lyrically for that one, I guess. It was the oddest song we did on the record. I mean, there's a mixture in there, I think, of like kind of almost, I guess, like Beatles-esque Mellotron use, for a little while. I'm not bloody I hasten to compare us to the Beatles, but for a second, but there's a crossover in the instrument. That's probably where it starts and ends. Which is a little bit of an odd choice for us, and then actually became probably one of the key instruments that runs throughout the record and gels everything together a little bit, not as a lot more subtly than in the first record. And then I guess the second part is just it's upbeat. It seemed like an obvious kind of album starter for us. It's a little bit of a move away from the material that was on the first record, and had a bit of a bang to it. Um, yeah, probably all those things mixed together. And then there's a whopping great bagpipe solo in the middle of it, from a guy called Alistair Campbell, who your viewers may or may not be aware of, but he was Tony Blair, our ex Prime Minister's Tony Blair's kind of right hand man, I guess. And it happens to, we listen to a podcast that he does, which is a big podcast over here. He happens to mention that he plays bagpipes. One thing led to another, and he's playing bagpipes on our record, weirdly. So, yeah, all of those reasons meant that we start off with a bang, I think.
So I have to admit, I don't have a great bagpipe ear. I don't know how prevalent bagpipes are in Wales, which is where you're from. And may have to talk a little bit more about Wales in a little bit because I
Of course,
have some Welsh in my background. What separates good bagpipe from a bagpipe, Tom?
I think it's mainly a volume thing. I have no idea. I mean, I mean, clearly these, like, I've never seen it being played live. It was super impressive. It's obviously more of a Scottish thing
Yeah.
than anywhere else, but, and I think it's an obligatory, thing that you got to wear a kilt while you're playing it. But yeah, they were good at it. I mean, he also brought with him his pipes teacher, a guy called Finlay MacDonald, who was like head of the Glasgow Piping Association, and now that boy could play. He was great with anything. So yeah, we when we did the track, we were looking for something to fill the gap of what would normally be, I guess, a guitar solo, and we thought it was in need of something a little bit more outside of the box. So why not bagpipes? We're sticking with it, mate.
Yeah, he's telling me my bagpipe's name is Finlay McDonald. I'm going to have a lot of confidence that he knows what the hell he's doing.
He's doing it. Yeah, he grew up with a bagpipe in his mouth. Yeah, absolutely.
Not that you need help with a lack of really good guitar solos. Chris Buck does a great job on this album. I'm not going to have you go song by song and ask you, well, why is this song before this one or after this one? I did want to ask about a song that he actually wrote, Push Pull, which was about the death of his father, which when I first
Hmm.
heard that song before I had read anything about it, I assumed that had to do with somebody that you yourself lost, Tom. So what is the process like for singing the emotions that somebody else is putting down on paper, or putting melodically into music? How does that work for you?
Yeah, it was that one's a strange one. Chris and I grew up together. Essentially, we went to school together. We've been very close friends for, I guess, 25 years, and as a result, I knew Doria's father pretty well, and Chris's dad died of cancer, and there was an inevitability to that. We knew it was terminal, and um, Chris, I guess I wear my heart on my sleeve a lot more than Chris. He'd be the first to say that as well. But he expresses himself through his playing of guitar. And we were writing music for the record. And Chris said, I have this idea. And the moment I heard it, I knew what he wanted to say, musically. And we knew that this was going to be the kind of song for his father, but also, I guess, more to the point, expressing how he felt at the moment. And it's loss is incredibly personal, especially when it's that close, and everybody has a different method of dealing with it. Chris is not a lyrics writer, although I'm sure he'd be good at that as well if he tried. But it was less that he couldn't write the lyrics, and more, I guess, of struggling to find the way that he felt. And I remember we talked about you know him kind of feeling almost, as I guess anybody that goes through that kind of loss over a elongated period of time, there's an immediate relief there, but then there's a guilt about that relief, I guess. Um, and I remember him saying to me, I don't know how I'm supposed to feel, and that little line kind of stuck out to me. And so I said, look, do you mind if I have a little stab at writing some lyrics for this? And without any guidance from Chris, really, but I think we all knew what he was trying to say with the music of the song. So I drafted up some lyrics and I sent it over to him, and we did the very manly thing of yeah, no, that'll do, yeah, and I think he's thankful for it. But yeah, it's a song, I guess what you've just said is very complimentary, right? That if it sounds like it's the loss of someone that personally to me, then I guess I've done something, on the right lines. And we've all suffered it, right? So I mean, there's probably a bit of my loss of people that I know, wrapped up in that as well. But it's it's it was a tough record because you're in the studio and that song is literally there are no edits in that track. It's exactly how you hear it. We did it one take. In the control room is me, Chris, and Cyril, our producer at the time, who was also engineering the record. And it's probably the first time that me and Chris have really done that properly together. And it ain't perfect, and there are times when I'm not probably hitting the right notes, and it's a bit shaky on the guitar or whatever. But you leave those moments in, I think, because it's the emotive moments that really count. So yeah, it was a tough one to record, but we play it live as well, and it's such a lovely point in the set, I think, where everybody just gets to shut up for 5 minutes and the band go off and they go and have a beer side stage, and me and Chris get to say, thank you to his dad.
Yeah, those imperfections are kind of what makes life perfect. I mean, was there a look after you guys were done recording that in studio, like you looking over to him for any sort of nod or approval, or you guys making eye contact and realizing that you had done it
No,
right?
not even. Chris was playing. I was stood over his shoulder because I didn't want to look at him for that reason.
That's fair.
Um, but I mean, even when we play it live, if you listen to the song, the guitar part, I mean, Chris is an incredible player and he can play
Yeah.
it in his sleep, no doubt. But obviously, the added pressure and it's 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 very isolated and it's very as a result, everybody feels a lot, kind of like the spotlight's on them and. You're just hanging on for dear life to get through the song, to be honest. And I think that's probably a coping mechanism for us both so that we don't delve too deeply into the meaning. Because, I mean, I will cry over a toilet roll advert, mate. I am a very emotional bloke. So, Chris less so. So, even in the moments when I know I'm talking about his father and his loss, it doesn't take much for me to, ball into a bubbling mess, I guess. Yeah.
So did it just make sense to follow a song about death with a song that is essentially celebrating life and a tribute, an ode to your daughter Adeline, one of your two kids? You have I believe, a 5-year-old daughter, a 7-year-old son. Did it make sense to follow push pull with a song about someone that you love as much as anything on this planet?
Yeah, I've got one child, and it's a
Oh, my
5-year-old
apologies. I
daughter.
thought I
Yeah,
had
no,
you
it's okay.
had
I
a
might, I
7-year-old
might have a
son.
7-year-old son, but it's news to me. Yeah, yeah.
You
No,
are not the father, Tom.
yeah, exactly. Wow, you frightened me there for a second. She's 4, she's 5 when we hit Nashville, actually, which is, yeah, that's what the song is about. I mean, it is about my daughter, and I love her, more than anything in the world. It's a bit of a bittersweet song about wondering whether I'm a good enough dad, and not being there for big periods of time, and whether or not that sacrifice is worth it, and if she will understand that one day, because at the moment I'm just the guy that she sometimes sees on TV going around places. So yeah, so but the song literally musically transforms from a pretty chilled out piece of music into a bit of a jam, a bit of a fireside kind of party song at the end, where it's a solo and it's big vocal parts, and that should be representative at least of the transition from wondering whether I'm a good enough dad to, I guess, thinking that I am at the end. We'll see.
What do you love about fatherhood?
Pretty much all of it, mate. Honestly, we have been incredibly lucky that she is an absolute doll. She's just before speaking to you, I was speaking to her. Then she's painting away on the dinner table. It's nearly her bedtime back home, and we've been incredibly lucky. She's great, and just I always wondered whether or not I would be kind of. I think the older she gets, the closer I get to her because she's able to kind of speak obviously at a higher level and a deeper meaning level and stuff, and just seeing her grow and learn things on the job, as it were, is just incredible to be part of. It's such a privilege. It's I remember, sorry, off on a tangent, but I remember seeing a clip about Jimmy Carr. I don't know whether you know Jimmy Carr. He's a
Yeah.
big comedian in the UK. So and there's a guy asking him about being, becoming a father, and he said, I never got it. And I thought that because of my job and my money, I thought I was playing I was head of the poker table, and I was on, the poker. I was the top chip leader on the poker table, and then I had a child, and I realized I was just playing on the wrong table. That is it. That's a nonsense table. Go over to this one. You'll understand what it is to be, the top of your game. And yeah, absolutely, it was the same for me. I think, I've been with my wife Rebecca. We've been married since 2018. We've been together since we were kids. And we were always umming and ahhing about kids, and we loved our life and our relationship. And we thought, well, maybe. And then we kind of made the decision to, and it's a game changer, mate. I love it.
Yeah, I'm with you on that actually. My wife and I have been married for 13 years in January, and right after we got married, we had known other married couples who were having a hard time with it and spending
Mm,
literally tens of thousands of dollars
mm,
to try and have babies. And we looked at one another
wow.
like, yeah, we could do kids, and but if it doesn't happen, we're not going to kill ourselves trying to make that
Yeah.
go down. And it happened for us almost immediately after we pulled the proverbial goalie. And so we were like, oh man, this is a year into us getting married. We kind of wish we had more time. But in retrospect, because I have a 10 and 8-year-old now, almost 11 and 9, and they're starting school tomorrow, we're so glad it happened. I mean, I wouldn't trade this experience for the world. And I totally
Yeah.
respect my single friends or even my married friends who don't want to go down that road. But I can't imagine what life would be like for me as I start to enter my middle ages, not having that added sense of purpose to go with everything else that's happening in this.
Yeah. Yeah, and you hit the nail on the head. Purpose, right? It is that idea, and I'm with you. Like, not only do I not judge people that I have in my life at my age that don't have kids, I'm incredibly envious of those people
Yeah.
at times. I mean, what a dream, right? Like the idea of binge watching a Netflix series. I mean, like, wow, yeah, I'd love to do that, but like, and I also will never talk to those guys too much about how good I find having children,
Yeah.
because you end up sounding like that guy, right? Like, but and also it's just hard to describe, because a lot of those same friends have nieces and nephews, for example, and they're like, I get it. Like, I've looked after my, nephew for 4 hours on a Saturday once a month, and I love it. Love little Timmy, and it's lovely to send little Timmy back. And I always thought that way. And it's the depth of relationship you get, obviously, with your own child is incredible, and it's tough, and it's hard, and it's expensive, and it's incredible. And so I'm up for it, mate. I love it, and I miss her very much. And her birthday she's 5 when we hit Nashville on tour, and so singing Adeline in Nashville, I imagine, is going to be a little bit of a tough one.
Yeah, hopefully you got somebody recording that for you so you can send it to her as a sort of happy
Yeah.
birthday to her. I assume that she's also heard the song already too, and she loves it.
Well, I don't know about I don't know about love it, but she loves Taylor Swift. I don't know, but she gets on with it. She sings it. I think she sings it if I'm in the room, just because she thinks she has to. But yeah, I don't think she understands the gravitas of having a song written after her, and but I love that about her as well. And maybe one day she'll grow up and go, well, that was quite cool.
One day, one day. So, Midnight at the Valencia, according to the press release, feels like a document of the band's 10,000 hours, dive bars, the near misses, the personal loss. 10,000 hours implies a lot of practice, but it also implies a lot of failure as well, Tom. Is there a moment of failure for you guys as a band that has helped you get to the point that you're at right now? And if so, what was the lesson?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's mainly been failure, to be honest, and I think that's probably the case with most bands, especially of our age. We're all old men now, but we definitely went through a period where myself and Chris and Adam, um, we basically had a shot at this 15 years ago, and it took hindsight and about 10, 12 years of what people might deem failure within original music, at least as a band, to realize what we were onto at the time, and I don't think we were mature enough then, and I don't think that we, in both in ability and in ourselves personally, definitely in our songwriting ability, it took us going away to come back, and I, failure is the word. I just think that it's has such a negative connotation that I actually think it's just the practice run. It's just it's what you do with those kind of failures and losses, I guess, and they make you so much better. I'm so glad we went through that, because I think now, from whether it's being in the room together writing, whether it's literally running the band as we do essentially ourselves, day to day, from accounting to tour planning, whatever it might be, actually putting on our own shows. We are very tight both as mates, and it's just like family. And I think that, and then to touring and being on the road and all of those, being in tight spots together and whatever, like all of those are done infinitely better now, because it's not our first time around. And so if any band, any young musicians listen to this, you almost want to get knocked down, because it makes you such a better person, and a better player and a better band, I think, the second, third, fourth, fifth time around.
So even though you guys do have a record label, in a way, with all everything that you're doing behind the scenes, you're kind of your own small business. Like, you guys are operating a small business together that is disguised as a band.
Yeah, we run it as two what we would call limited companies. We have a touring side and we have a merchandise side, and I mean, in the UK, we don't use an agent, we don't use a promoter. It's we literally approach venues ourselves, and we what we call four wallers venues, and it works quite nicely. And I tour manage the band. Chris does all of the creative. Kind of any of the artwork you've seen, the artwork on the album, the artwork on the advertisement stuff.
Wow.
Ad runs all the merchandise side of it, and we do have a manager, that kind of, it's again, well, we love him to bits. He's been there from day one, but I guess even that relationship's a bit kind of less all encompassing than some management deals, and instead he kind of gets involved on the kind of higher level consultancy side of it, if you like. And yeah, we're lucky that we started working with 30 Tigers out in Nashville, and they've been incredible. But even then, I mean, the nitty gritty is we're the label, and they are our marketing arm essentially, and our distribution partner. So, because the music industry has changed so much, that those kind of big 360 deals of days gone, really, there isn't that much money in it now, so you don't do it that way. But and then our agent in the US is WME, and those guys have been really great as well, and have helped us put on this tour. But in the UK especially, we're pretty much completely DIY.
So I come at this as a fellow entrepreneur. This radio show, this podcast is essentially a small business as well. Every
Right.
small business, if they could wave a magic wand to get help with one aspect of things, I think you would take the genie up, or the fairy up on that one. For me, it's very simple. It's help with social media. There's only so many hours
Okay.
in the day, and I have to prioritize, and that's something that sadly falls behind the wayside. So for you guys, as a band, or as a small business masked as a band, if you could wave a magic wand and get help with any one area of running this, what would it be?
Wow, it's a good question, and it's not one that I've ever been asked. I mean, honestly, not to make it too much about brass tacks, but cash flow is always the issue with a
Yeah.
smallish band. It's the idea of touring is very cyclical in its nature, and we'll go through periods of time where we make quite a lot of income, and then we go through periods of time where it's a fallow period and we are spending a lot of money. Maybe we're writing and recording a record, and um, you know, if it was the 1980s and we were getting a big record contract, we wouldn't worry about it. You'd get a lot of money up front. It would cover all those costs. We don't operate that way. The trade-off is we own everything. We own all the IP. So if you're able to do it, and we do struggle through and are able to do it, that's the thing we're able to keep is our integrity there through the music. Realistically, I mean, we've got Chris, who's great at the social media side. The only other person that we actually work with now is someone who controls our digital advertising, basically, and our digital marketing. And again, he's a one-man band that lives down the road from us, and does a great job. And it's not to be too boring with it, but you're constantly told as a musician that over the last 20 years since the digital era, the game has changed completely with regards to recording. The same people will often tell you, yeah, but the live music hasn't. that it's always, you've got to go through your agent, you've got to go through your big promoter, you've got to, they hold the keys to the gate. And we, without burning bridges and trying to piss anybody off, we're always kind of subtly asking the questions why. Like, why does it work that way? And, you take a gig like we're doing tonight, right? It's a small room. Schuber's, I mean, I know Schuber's because me and my wife used to love like early Jason Mraz stuff, and he did a live record from there. So I mean, it kind of stuck out to us. But for even people in Chicago, right, like Schuber's is a small club and whatever, and you've got to ask yourself the question of, well, why can't we pick the phone up directly to them? And the answer is risk. Like, that club is going to turn around to us and say, well, who are you guys and how do we know we're going to sell any tickets and whatever? Then we can go back and say, well, we just filled a 750 cap club in New York. Our Toronto show sold out in, I think, 2.5 hours. It's like, how much do you want us to, and also we'll pay you 50% deposit on the room anyway, so it is a risk. Any of these things are a risk, but also working with a local promoter is a risk. We can definitely tell you that firsthand. So we try and control the controllables. That's the way we look at things. And that isn't to say that you don't need outside help, because we've got that. And our agent's been great here, and our label has been great here, and long may that last.
Wait a second. Now I've got to ask about the downside of working with local promoters. Give me a story there, please.
Well, I mean, without naming any names, I mean, we have worked with promoters where local and national, where you are tidying up their work in terms of the production of assets all of the time. So we played a show in London last year in Shepherd's Bush Empire, which is an iconic London venue, right? Big show for us. I think it's 2,500 people.
Wow.
Incredibly expensive venue because it's right in Shepherd's Bush in London, in West London, and it literally is an iconic venue. So, and the promoter had done the copy for the shows to go on advertisement boards and online, just completely spelled Shepherd's Bush Empire wrong, and you're like, just basics, and they'll get the date wrong and they're whatever, and then you just think of actually, who is the end person that is looking after you for that show? It's usually, and I'm not having to go at anybody individually, but it's usually, a graduate coming out. They're never going to care as much as you care about it. And now, because of social media, you mentioned social media earlier. Chris, as the guitarist in the band, who, for anybody listening and doesn't know, is very well regarded globally as a guitarist himself. He probably has close to 300,000 YouTube subs. He probably has 200 plus thousand Instagram subs, followers. And he has a bigger reach independently than a lot of national promoters at that level, and cares about what goes out and makes sure that it's done right and at the right time, and also is direct to his fan base, right? So you've got to then start asking you the question of, at that level at least, what's the point in the promoter? What are they going to add? And our thing is, if you can't add value, then why should, and like the money involved, I mean, is incredible in their favor, and yes, they'll take the risk, but again, to my earlier point, is it a massive risk if you know that even when we, our first ever gigs, right? Like, we put 200 people in a room in London for our first show, it sold out. We jumped immediately to 750 people. We sold it out. We then jumped to 1,100 cap room. We sold that out. And then we went to Shepherd's. But like, it's, risk. You've got to limit the risk. I understand that, but bloody hell.
So you just touched on something that I'm in complete agreement with. And marketers and promoters are a lot like salespeople. There are a lot of people that will tell you that they're really good at that. They're good at sales. They're good at marketing. They're good at promotions. At the end of the day, very few actually are. And as you just said, nobody's going to care about something that matters to you more than you. And so, unfortunately, that requires you to cross a lot of T's and dot a lot of I's that supposedly we're going to get done, considering how much you're paying that person to take care of that work.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, agents and promoters will get you access into places in the music business. And I get that. And, if we're talking about coming over to the States, like, that is obviously a bigger undertaking than us going down our relative back road and booking shows, where you can, maybe there are language barriers if you're international, maybe there are geographic barriers, but Google Maps will tell you how far the places are between, and so you're not booking a place at 73 hours. Like
Yeah.
it really isn't that difficult. The difficulty comes when we're in a sweet spot where we're not so small that we can't put bums on seats in a show, and we're not too big that we have to access small arenas and things that are with your Live Nations of this world and whatnot. And those guys literally hold the keys to those buildings. At which point, if you want to play those things, you gotta bow down a little bit, But you know, the other consideration with us is, how do we keep the lights on at home? How do we pay the bills? How do we pay the mortgage? And again, we're told that the strategy is that you bend over to these people and they will take, a massive chunk of your earnings, and you suck it up because you'll get festivals and I'm like, that's great, but we aren't backed by anybody. Like, there's a big thing in British music at the moment about, like, the only musicians that can make it are people who are backed either financially by wealthy families or outside interests or whatever. We don't have any of that, and we're all from working class coal mining valleys in South Wales, and I'm not pleading poverty by any stretch, but equally, in order for me to pay my mortgage every month, I have to make money from this band. It's my job. And so I don't have the luxury to be able to say, what's the 5-year plan? I'm like, I just need to get through the next tour at the moment, but it's going the right way, and the crowds are building. And I hate going to industry because I'm like, everybody just goes, wow, man, you're supposed to just be a rock and roll singer, but that's what it's a music business, it's a business for a reason.
Well, you have your fingerprints on a lot of different aspects of the band, including things that aren't necessarily happening on stage night after night. So I appreciate you sharing that input. Hopefully, it can
Yeah.
provide some value for people listening right now, because Austin, a place that you'll be stopping on August 21st. Sorry, I'm not going to tell you to buy tickets at Antone's, because just like everywhere else that they're touring just about, it is sold out. But maybe somebody's hearing this and it's a message that they're able to take with them, and not make some of the mistakes that you had to make to gain the understanding that you do. So thank you for that.
It's mate, it's my pleasure. And we've done, I've done our own YouTube videos on it, because I think it's not only is it not spoken about enough, but I think it's a classic move in an industry where people, in an artistic industry, where people say, the reason I'm good and the reason I can make money from this and the reason you call me a rock star is because I have this special thing. And I think that's bullshit. I think that you can have that. I'm not saying that people at the top of the game aren't talented. I get that. But why are we pulling up the ladder behind us here and saying screw you to all of the young guys? It's it if I knew back then rather what I knew now, I think this would all be a lot easier, and you should have trials and tribulations. You should make mistakes, and everybody's pathway is different. And for some people, top end agent, top end promoter, big label, that can work incredibly successfully, and a lot quicker than the way we're doing it. But for us, with the kind of music we play, the kind of age group we are, the kind of band we are, and our ability, as a three-piece, which is fundamentally what we are in terms of the ownership of the band, if you like, we have skill sets between the three of us to be able to handle a lot of this. Not everybody can do that. Not everybody's got a decent amount of business acumen, and they need to dish that out, and they need to just be the guitarist, just be the singer. That's cool too. We're lucky, we can do it. But why you can't openly talk to other people in the industry and say, crikey, it's hard. Like I'm not a wealthy man in this game. It's like it's difficult, and I could be as a 38. I know I look a lot younger. As a 38-year-old man, I see my friends who've gone through school and college with me and whatever walk into jobs and make infinitely more money than me and have decent pensions and go on 3 family holidays a year and all these things. I can't remember the last time I went on holiday. I don't have any money. Do you know what I mean? I don't have a pension. It's a struggle. It's hard. You're running a business, but it's the same as running a small plumbing business or, whatever. It's just the same that everybody goes through. And I think we give too much emphasis and time to it being this magical thing that only certain people are chosen to do. You got to graft. You got to do the work.
Beautifully put there. I do need to ask you about this real quick, Tom, because you played rugby in your past. You were a semi-professional, I guess, in Canada before a horrific accident ended all of that. I don't want to ask about the accident necessarily. What I want to ask you about rugby is you are in the land of American football now. Football is king here in this country. I feel like a lot of football fans could be rugby fans, but there's enough of a difference in these two games that we just don't know what the hell is going on for the most part. So for you as a guy with a rugby background, do you watch American football and think the same thing?
I understand the game. I'm not an avid follower of it. I'm not an avid follower of even rugby, mate. To be honest, I've always been half decent at it, and I was lucky enough to get some decent accolades, I guess, in my younger life. But whether or not I would, accident aside, whether or not I would have been good enough to be a full professional, have a life out of it, I don't know. Looking back, I don't think I'd want to now, to be honest. But yeah, to your question, American football, I love it. I love the spectacle of it. I'm traveling with people in the group that don't get it at all. The kind of stop-start nature of the game versus kind of rugby, but there are a lot of similarities. And we had Lewis Rees-Zammit, the Welsh international, come over and play. I think it was Kansas City, I think. And I don't even know whether you even know that name. And it was a huge story when he left you. He was a superstar in Wales and British rugby. And I don't even know whether he got a full game, to be honest. And now it looks like he's coming back round. I mean, the level of sportsmanship at the top level of the game over here, as in American football, is incredible. But yeah, I would love to sit there with anybody that is an American football fan and talk them through a rugby game. They would instantly love it. It's fast flowing. There's a lot of skill. In the same way as it takes a Brit to think twice about American football, you just got to get used to the slight changes. Not throwing the ball forward for one.
Well, I feel like it's yeah. Well, I feel like it's a little bit like American football, but if American football operated more at the pace of like soccer or hockey or something.
Yeah, I mean, I used to live in Vancouver. We went and watched a bit of hockey every now and then, and that for me, it feels like it's American football. Being the rugby similarity of it, the pace of the game,
Yeah.
and the impacts and stuff. Obviously, it's not nice, but yeah, there are some. I mean, America now have a really good rugby team. They're competing at a decent world standard, and Wales haven't been great for a little while, to be honest, but they always punch above their weight. But yeah, you guys would love it if you just give it more time.
All right, last question now, Tom. I do appreciate the extended time here. You guys are currently on your first American tour for the new album, Midnight at the Valencia. What do you love about that album?
Wow. I don't like talking about myself in that way very much. I think we're super proud of it. The first album for me seemed like it was an amalgamation of 10 years of writing, and we kind of had to get it off our chest. But I think it probably sounds that way as well. And there is some kind of written in the moment material, and there's some stuff that goes way back. It's more of a compilation. This album was written to be the album that it is in the moment, and it literally covers storytelling from a brief period of our lives. And I'm a massive believer that that's what music should be. You write it, you get it out, and you move on, and it should be a snapshot of your time as a band. And but higher production value. We had a lovely time recording just outside Zurich in Switzerland, and got some toys to play with over there and whatnot. And I'm really proud of it as a kind of, my loves for music are James Taylor and Paul Simon and Carole King, and a bit more kind of songwriters rather than blues bands, and I think there's a little bit more breadth in this record. I really like it.
With a focus on those little moments in time. Has anybody ever told you you sound like somebody else in the music biz? Because you definitely sound like somebody else to me, but I'm curious to know if somebody else has brought this answer to you before.
You mean as a singer?
As a singer, yeah.
Uh, I mean, I do get a few. Yeah, what am I thinking? I get. Well, you know what? Everybody just says that I sound like, I don't know whether, do you know Rag and Bone Man?
No.
Okay, he's a British guy. So there's there's a theme. sometimes I get Teddy Swims. Here's the thing, right? I don't think I sound like those guys at all. I just think I'm a fat guy with a beard, and I think everybody goes, you remind me of these, and I'm like, what? There's a funny one. Sorry, you could tell me then, but I don't care if you tell me someone I don't like. But there's I had a guy came to review a gig. He wrote a really lovely piece in the paper, and he said, "This guy sounds like Rag and Bone Man if Rag and Bone Man could sing." So there are two things there, right? First of all, Rag and Bone Man, he's got a great voice in his own right. He's a pop artist. He's a big deal in the UK, and so I'm like, well, firstly, let's not beat that guy up. Secondly, if I sound like someone, if that person could sing, that just surely that means I don't really sound like him. So now you're just saying I'm a fat guy with a beard. I get it.
All right, this other guy that I'm about to tell you his name
He's
is a
also a big guy with a beard,
the
isn't he?
bigger bone gentleman with a beard, but I promise it's more about the voice than anything else because I didn't know what you look like when I first heard the album.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
by the way, Teddy Swims, I get that a little bit. It's not as accurate as this, in my opinion.
I don't really get that. I mean, he's got a great voice, but I don't really get that.
Yeah. Nathaniel Rateliff in the Night Sweats. Your voice
Oh
sounds
yeah.
a lot like Nathaniel Rateliff, and I say that not as somebody who's going to backhand compliment Nathaniel Rateliff because I think his voice sounds awesome, and I love his band's music too. So I think hopefully that's a compliment for you because I dig both bands, and I'm newer to the Cardinal Black fan club, but I am securely in that fan club now. So thank you so much for all the great work.
Thank you, mate. It's one that I need to dig into. I get that comparison quite a lot, and I'm actually not that familiar with him and his work. So, and it's a little bit like, when someone says to you, "Well, you've never seen The Wire, or you've got to watch The Wire. What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Well, now that's going to be the last thing I ever see. I need to find it in my own time. So I need to get into it because everybody says that, and the little bit I have heard, it is a compliment. Thank
Start
you.
with the song "Son of a Bitch." That's the name of the song, "Son of a Bitch." And if
Cool.
you don't like that song, then you don't have to go anywhere else with it. You can say, you know what, that Austinite Trey, he didn't know what the hell he was talking about.
I'll check it when we're off the call. Now I'm gonna have a shower. I'm gonna check it out.
Cool. Tom, thank you so much for the time today. Again, I would tell people to go get tickets to Cardinal Black at Antone's on August 21st, but that show, just like pretty much every show on this tour, is sold out already. So you guys enjoy the show at Shuba's tonight. Safe travels around this country, and thank you again. Hopefully, this isn't the last time you and I have a chance to chat.
No, I'm sure it won't be, mate. Thanks so much for having me, Trey. Cheers.